Hey everybody, welcome back. Today what we're going to be doing is changing transmission fluid and the filter in a 4L60E transmission. This is actually in a 2007 Chevy Tahoe. So stay tuned. Alright, what we're doing, like I said, is change the transmission fluid and filter. This is somewhat of a simple job. You can do it on the ground, on jack stands or anything. I'm using a 2-post lift, so it's a little easier for me. These transmissions, they came in the Tahoes, the Suburbans, the Silverados, and also the GMC equivalents of those. They probably came in different other models also. But on this particular vehicle, just support it up high as you can so you can get to everything. And two things that you need to do first off is get the shifter linkage out of the way. Let's see if I can move the light. There you go, shifter linkage. Okay, you can use a pry bar or a screwdriver or a trim tool or something. You can pop the shift linkage loose from the ball stud. And then on the back side, let me see if I can move you over here. You can see the back side of it. The back side of this linkage actually comes over the lip of the pan. So what you need to do, you can do two things. The correct way to do it would be to remove the 2 bolts that's on the top side of the bracket for the shift linkage, or the shifter cable rather. Either take the bracket off and it'll be completely out of the way, or if you choose to do so, you could use a pry bar, put it up beside the pan. Just be careful not to dent it, and you can move that bracket over. We're not going to do that though, but I have seen people do that in the past. So the 2 bolts that are up top, those are actually torque screws. Those are T35s if I remember correct. Remove those 2 and remove the end of the shift cable from the ball stud. Get that done first, so let's get started. So we'll get the shift linkage loose. There you go, she just pops right off. Be careful with it, because sometimes as these age, the plastic gets brittle and it will crack and you have to buy a new cable. So this one here popped right off, no problem at all. So we have that. Now we'll do the transmission cable bracket. So I believe they are T35s. Those 2 are up top. Sometimes those are in there pretty tight. Yeah, it was in there pretty tight. Odds are nobody's taking this off. And this vehicle supposedly has around 200,000 miles. There's no drain plug in this pan. They could have used a flush machine or something at some point in its life. So that's the first bolt. I'll get the second bolt. She's coming. Okay, got the second bolt. Okay. That's basically what these are. T35. Okay. So once those 2 are taken out of the way, you just move the bracket back and she is free. Let me reposition my light. Maybe you can see a little better up here. No, that doesn't help any. It's hard to get a good light. Okay, now with that out of the way, you're gonna have, I don't know how many transmission bolts there are, but these are 13 millimeters. Now what I like to do, but you can do it any way you want to, take the bolts loose from the front of the pan, just go straight across, and then go ahead and get your drain pan ready. Once you get the front off, then work your way towards the back of the vehicle on the sides. That way the pan will actually dip down in the front. You'll start to pour fluid out the front. Otherwise it's just going to drop down. It's going to be a big old mess. And that won't be fun. Those are actually very loose. So I got a magnetic tray holder bolts here. I got it. Okay. Alright, now we have all the bolts loose except for 3 at the very back of the pan. So what you can do now, it should start to drip. Yes, it's starting to drip. So we can get our drain pan underneath here. Very good. Now you can use a pry bar and carefully, that's unless the pan has already came loose. Get your pry bar. Hopefully I don't block our view. You can hold a little bit up on the pan and just get right on the edge, the lip of the pan and the body. Just tweak it just a little bit so fluid starts to drain. And you're going to make a little bit of a mess. It's going to be a little dirty, but it is what it is. Okay, now we'll go ahead and take out a couple more of our bolts in the back. That'll help the pan dip forward more in the front. Okay, and we're down to 1 bolt left. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold the pan so it doesn't fall all the way down and just loosen this bolt. And then slowly come down with the pan a little more. Okay, so we're down past that point. So we can go ahead and loosen the bolt a little bit more. Let a little bit more fluid come out. Just keep the pan supported because it still has a good bit of fluid in it. Okay, I'm just going to take the rest of it out. Get the last bolt out. Grab your pan. Give it a tilt to the front, and we'll start draining a little more of the fluid. And you're going to have to wiggle it over the exhaust for it to come out. Let's do one thing. One thing we can do, you can use a pry bar and tweak the exhaust down just a little bit so the pan will finish coming out. Just like that. Okay. So the pan is out out now. Wipe my hands off just a little bit. Okay. So with it wiped off, so we'll get everything poured out, get the rest of the fluid poured out. You take the magnet right there, actually it has two, you take both magnets out, get those cleaned, and then use brake clean or carburetor cleaner or whatever you have. Spray out the pan, clean the pan out, and then we'll take the filter off up top. Okay, the filter, there's no screws or fasteners or anything holding it up in place. It's just pressed in and it has a grommet around the fill tube. So you can just grab it by hand and you just wiggle it and it should pop right out. Now whenever you do, it's probably going to let out a little bit more fluid. Just a little bit, not that bad. Okay, so you can see the very top of the filter has this fill tube, and then there's a grommet that goes up inside. So we need to get that grommet out next. What you can do with that, you can use a pick or a small screwdriver and just put it up in place. I'll see if I can get you up close. See if it'll focus. Yeah, there's a seal that's up inside here. You just need to get that out. Move the light. There we go. You might be able to see it a little better. No, not really. I don't want to get fluid on the camera here. So anyway, what you can do, you could use a screwdriver and you could just push it up on the edge. Or you can use a pick and pull it out. Yeah, pick's not working too well. We'll use a screwdriver, a little small screwdriver. Let's see here. What we'll do, we could push it right between the seal. Let's see, let me set you up. Hold on one second. Okay, just be very careful not to gouge. You don't want to gouge the body of the casing. So just put it right along the edge of the seal. Basically, you're just going to tap it and work your way up. You can see it starting to move the seal. Okay? You can turn it and twist it. And what you want to do is cave that seal in. Okay? Then, you should be able to get in there with your pick. Wiggle it around. And there it goes. There's the rest of our seal. Okay. There we have it. So we'll go ahead and get the pan cleaned up, and I'll show you the new filter and how to get the new seal up inside the transmission. Okay, we got the pan cleaned up. We got our two magnets cleaned up. This pan had two magnets in it. It should just have one magnet that goes in this square indention. So someone has had this out before and put two. So we cleaned them up, put them back in the same spot they were in. Got the pan cleaned up real nice. So our gasket, that's going to go on the pan, and the filter. I've already put the seal. It's a press-in bushing type seal into the bottom of the transmission. You can just use a socket that's the same outside diameter as the bushing. Just use a hammer and lightly tap it up into the bottom of the transmission. So, we're going to get the gasket on here. best way you could do this, let's see which way it lines up with the holes. It'll be that way. Okay, line that up, then you can get some of your bolts. You put them through the holes in the gasket to hold the gasket in place. Now it's probably going to be a little bit of aggravation trying to get the pan up above the exhaust with these bolts sticking up from the back, but it'll be doable. That way you don't have to worry about getting the pan up there and then fishing the gasket up around it and lining the bolt holes up. So we're going to get this on. Okay. All right, now we'll take the filter. Get the filter up in place. And she is there. Until it seats all the way and the filter's being held up by the seal that's in the bushing. So now next thing you can do, we've already sprayed around in the transmission, just wipe down the mating surface of the pan. I'll grab a rag and we'll wipe that off. And we'll get the pan up in place. Just so the mating surface is clean. Okay, that will be sufficient. Now grab your pan. A tight wiggle. Let's grab this bar. And you can pry down on the exhaust just a little bit. Alright, once you get the pan up in place, then you could start getting the bolts threaded in. Now make sure you don't cross thread them. Just get them to start by hand. Just a few turns. A crisscross pattern any way you want to. Just get all the bolts started. Okay. Now I'm going to use my Milwaukee battery ratchet. This one doesn't have a lot of torque, so I'm not going to tighten it up all the way. It's going to go until she starts to snug up. You can hear it whenever it starts to tighten. Once you get that, just go back and snug them up by hand. You can look up the torque specs if you want to torque them down to a certain amount. It's up to you. Just as long as they're snug, because you definitely don't want to squeeze the gasket too bad. That'll actually cause it to leak. Okay, put the pan's up there. Next thing, get your shift linkage back in place on top of the transmission. Then you can go ahead and attach the shift cable. Snap it on that ball stud until it clicks. Bolts lined up here. Okay. I'm actually going to use my Milwaukee ratchet snug up these bolts up top, be a little quicker. Okay. And then just go back by hand, make sure the bolts are snug. And they are. Alright, after you get everything finished up underneath, get the pan dry, and you fill it up with fluid. The actual fill spec for just the pan removal on the two-wheel drive 4L60E is 5 quarts. And depending on what year your vehicle you have, this is a 07, it holds Dextron 6. So shift from park all the way down to low gear, back up to park, and all the gears in between. Hold it for a few seconds so all the fluid gets circulated back through the system. After you do that, let the vehicle warm up to somewhat operating temperature. Parking on level surface. Go ahead, pull your dipstick out, clean it off. Stick it in, pull it back out. Let's see if you can see. It's right at the top of that top hash mark. That is full. So like I said, the two-wheel drive trucks hold 5 quarts for a pan and filter removal. If you're doing anything more extensive transmission service, it's probably gonna hold more, and the 4-wheel drive trucks you would end up holding more. All right guys, appreciate you watching. Catch you next time.